How we doing, everyone, and welcome back to the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. We have been on our journey through the NFL preseason, and now we land on the NFC North. Holders of the most NFL titles when you combine the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers, talking pre-merger as well as post-merger. Believe it or not, once upon a time, the Lions as well do have some hardware. I'm not quite sure if it's the same material given the year, but they do. With me today, we have quite the panel. My man Michael Zappy out in Texas. We've got my man Idris Salaam, North Carolina. My guys, John and Josh Olson. John is one of my friends here in Florida. He is actually visiting family out in Wisconsin. Josh currently lives in Wisconsin. You cannot see Josh right now, which I believe gives Josh an upper hand because he could kind of see like our flows and just kind of jump in when he wants. But without further ado, we always start from the bottom and go to the top. So we are starting with the Detroit Lions. These guys finished fourth last year, good enough for the second pick in the NFL draft. Key addition in the NFL draft, Aiden Hutchinson. Hutch, I was actually shocked that he did not go number one overall. That to me was very, very surprising. I do believe that the Jaguars made a boo-boo taking Trayvon Walker. I think they should have went with Hutch. It works out great for Hutch. He's playing where he made a name for himself in the state of Michigan. I do think second-year coach Dan Campbell actually made them relatively competitive. One thing about them, even when they were struggling, is that they did a very good job of continuing to compete. And that usually is a telltale that they love their coach and they're going to run through a wall for their coach. The highlight of last season, I would have to say for them, probably defeating the Green Bay Packers in a game that didn't mean anything to the Green Bay Packers, but still meant something to the Lions. And I would say the tie in Pittsburgh in Heinz Field. Character-defining moments for a young team trying to figure out how to win. DeAndre Swift, questionable fantasy option coming back. Gentlemen, whoever wants to really jump on this and ride on this, what do you guys feel about the Lions? It's been a long time since they've been, quote-unquote, respectable. I think they're headed in that direction. How do you guys feel about this? Whoever wants to start off, go right ahead.
I can go.
Go ahead, John.
I think they will not be the cellar dweller in the North. That's going to be the Bears.
I tend to agree.
Hutchinson with the second overall pick is going to be a big help. I think he'll start right away. And then they traded up to number 10 to pick Jameson Williams out of Alabama, who they say has got all the talent, but I believe he's not going to play right away. I think he's a little hurt right now. But they'll play for Dan Campbell. The whole team seems to love him. So,
yeah, they play very hard. And, one of the toughest things when you're a bad team for so long and you have new regimes coming in and out is when you finally get that coach that they identify these guys really like playing for them. But, week in, week out, giving your best effort, but coming up short week in and week out definitely could be demoralizing. And one thing I'll say about this young squad is that they did not quit. I share your sentiment on Chicago finishing in the cellar. Josh, how do you feel about all this, man? Where do you have the Lions?
I like the Lions to win probably 7 games and finish third in the division. I agree that the Hutchinson, that was a steal for them.
Oh, yeah.
Best player in the draft. Trading, and I think it was even Minnesota gave them the pick to get Williams. So, to pull off that interdivision trade of a draft pick like that, they're headed in the right direction. And, if once they get the quarterback they want, they're looking good from where they're at to start this season. So I think they're on the right trajectory. I agree, I guess, with what you and my old man said.
So you're essentially saying more than likely this is the last year for Jared Goff.
It would seem so. I mean, it just seems like that's the one piece, because you look at that receiver, Amon-Ra, then Jameson, and I think they got Chark for 1 year.
Yes, they did.
He may not be back next year, depending how this season goes. But yeah, then you got Swift there, Hawkinson, just all the tools for the right guy to use. And hey, Goff has been to a Super Bowl. I get we all laughed at him, when he got traded to Detroit, but he's been there.
Good point. Idris, what do you think about this squad?
I say 7 games, third place. Yeah. The way they finished, and they want to play for Dan Campbell, man. These guys look, even in defeat. I mean, they really didn't have any bad losses last year. They look good in their games. I mean, it's just you're in the NFC North, man. You got Green Bay, you got Minnesota, and Chicago was, but I see 7 games. They might sneak an 8th game in there. As for Jared Goff, I see him the same way I see Daniel Jones. You better show out this year, or you're going out the door. Because Chicago, I'm not sold on their quarterback. I'm not sold on.
I tend to agree.
They need too much. I'm not sold on them. I'm saying, I'll get to Chicago, but 7 wins, maybe 8. They'll get sneaky on somebody late in the season.
We got them on the schedule this year, and most years, if I see Detroit, I'm like, oh, right, this is a cakewalk. Can't say that this year.
Not this year.
They are improving.
Yeah.
We're going to move it along. I think we're all in agreement that the Detroit Lions, more than likely, are the 3rd best team in this division.
Is that where you guys are right now? I'm sorry, I got disconnected.
Yeah, you should be, because this happens very frequently lately, and it's really starting to become an issue around here.
Well, I had to move out of the garage.
Got to pay your cable bill, Richie.
Zappy, as you speak to, I'm going to let you start with the Bears, and you can kind of intertwine it with the Lions. Because I was thinking about it. We're 7 minutes into this show, and the Lions do not deserve 7 minutes of anything. So I'm going to have you start with the Chicago Bears, finished 3rd last year. Key additions, Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker out of Penn State. I feel that the strength of their team this year, and it's going to cultivate, it's all within the kids that they drafted, not just this year, last year as well. But the new regime doesn't seem to be too keen on Justin Fields. It's a weird shitstorm going on in Chicago. It seemed like a lot of people were excited. They might have finally gotten a franchise quarterback. And now apparently the new regime doesn't want him. They lost Allen Robinson to the Rams. Go ahead, Zap. What do you feel about the Chicago Bears?
I'm going to guess, based on what I heard from you guys talking about the Lions, is you guys think the Bears are going to finish last, and I do too. There are way too many question marks about this team right now, starting with Justin Fields. I was very strong about it, that I felt he was very overrated, and it felt like the Bears felt obligated that they had to draft him because of where they were and because they needed a quarterback. So I personally don't think Justin Fields translates to the NFL, but he's still young. He could still possibly get it right. This team does have some bright spots. They do still have David Montgomery, and when he's not hurt, he's actually a very valuable running back. They got Darnell Mooney, who, he blew onto the scene, and all of a sudden now you're looking at your number 1 wide receiver after Allen Robinson is now a Ram. I'm a huge fan of Cole Kmet. Obviously, he's a Notre Dame guy as well.
Irish guy, definitely an ascending player.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, they did trade away Khalil Mack, and that tells me right there that they're not ready. They're not all in, because I don't feel like you trade away one of your star defensive players while you have a quarterback coming into his 2nd year, when going first, second year, that's usually when quarterbacks make the biggest leaps. Sometimes it's second or third, but as we've been watching as of late, it's been the first or second year. So, but yeah, the Bears for me, I don't know. They went, like you said, secondary. I have them winning 3 games this year. I think they're going to be bad. I think that there's more issues than we see right now, even with the things you mentioned.
The problem is, and the reason why they're going to be a bad football team, there's not anything specifically that they do very well. I mean, when you had Mac and you had other players on that team, predominantly on the defense, at minimum, you could say they might win some games they're not supposed to because their defense will keep them in the game. Over the course of the last couple of years, even their defense has been exploited. Now, Mac coming off an injury, playing on a contending Charger team, we'll see if his career gets redirected again. I imagine he'll have some motivation playing against his
Hicks too.
Raiders. Yeah, Akeem Hicks, another guy. Yes, sir.
Now he's a Buccaneer.
Yeah, everybody wants to be a Buccaneer.
True.
Idris, what are your thoughts on the Chicago Bears?
I'm gonna give them 4 games, maybe 5, but 4 games.
That's what I got them too. I got them going 4-13.
Yeah, Justin Fields, he can run the ball, but he's just not. I didn't see anything last year that tells me he's ready. And, they lost a lot, man. You got a second-year quarterback coming in here who they're basically giving the keys to. He's about as green as they come. And you get rid of weapons. You basically weaken your defense. 4 games. They might sneak 5, but I don't see it. Maybe I say 4 games.
Almost makes you feel like they want to tank out with the new regime, the new blood, so that way they can hopefully draft well and surround. But, now, like I said, before we went on the air, we were all kind of voicing our opinions on some level that the new regime is not exactly endeared with Justin Fields because no matter who the regime is or who the team is, the new regime has plans of who they want at the helm, especially now more than ever, with quarterback being the most important division in an offensive-driven league. If anybody else wants to chime, by all means, feel free. But I kind of get the vibe that we all have the same idea about where the Chicago Bears go.
I was just going to say that the Brewer fans are crying about the return we got for Hader.
I'm not a Brewer fan, and I was pissed too.
The Bears got a 2nd and a 6th for Mac. That seems to be a steal for the Chargers.
I'd have to say
they didn't give up that much.
And I think partially the motivation with that was the injury. But I still think Khalil Mack's a phenomenal linebacker. I still think that reporter that asked Bill Belichick if he was the next Lawrence Taylor was smoking crack. I definitely believe that because there's only one Lawrence Taylor. Sorry, guys. Right. But Khalil Mack is a hell of a football player. Josh, what do you think, man? You think the Bears, you think they even have like a signature upset in them? I mean, obviously there's a lot of history with you guys, but Aaron Rodgers owns this team.
They're not going to beat the Packers or Vikings probably this year. They probably won't even be able to beat the Lions, And, I feel for Justin Fields because, as you touched on, they kept that regime 1 year too long, and they bring someone in who's just going to get walked out on now, And it's like you said, I feel like it's a tank job in the making because they weaken the defense. He's going to have to try to throw the ball. Offensive line is ranked 32nd. He's just going to get killed out there, and good luck to him. But I feel for the guy.
It kind of has the David Carr vibes.
Yeah,
of what could happen, and we don't want that to happen to anyone in this game.
They sent him out to get butchered for 6 years. David Carr.
My God, that poor guy.
He was a good quarterback, too.
He was a good quarterback. Won a ring with the Giants and backing up Eli.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
limited duty, played really well.
Yep.
I think we're off the Bears.
They bad.
Yeah, they're real bad. Yeah. Minnesota Vikings finishing second last year. In my opinion, the 2 key additions that kind of popped off the paper to me. Jesus Christ, I spelled Zadarius Smith's name wrong. I apologize for that. I'm going to fix that. But Zadarius Smith, as well as Jordan Hicks, Vikings showed some flashes last year of what they could be. Classic game earlier in the year with the Green Bay Packers, a very exciting game. But then, they turn around and lose to Cooper Rush in the Cowboy game and remind everybody that they're still the Vikings. I would have to consider that this is also a very important year for Kirk Cousins. He's always that guy that'll get you fantasy stats, but he's never that guy that you want to give too much credit to or view as a franchise quarterback. They got a lot of weapons. Justin Jefferson is a top 3 to 5 receiver. Mm-hmm. The running game, Dalvin Cook, even if he misses a few, if he plays 12, 13 games, he's going to have an excellent year. They have depth at running back. I like their defense. I do think that at minimum, they're going to be a solid second place to the Packers. But it's the gap is kind of going to be a little smaller this year, more so because Green Bay is introducing a lot of new faces, both on defense and offense. But they still got the best quarterback in that division by far. But I do have the Vikings finishing a very respectable second, and in my opinion, qualifying for the playoffs.
All right, well, I guess I'll start it off then. I say the same thing. The way I see Kirk Cousins, he's like that guy. He takes the girl out, takes her to dinner, gets her home, gets her undressed, and he goes home. He's like, I'm going to go ahead home.
Idris, that's really shitty that you're saying this about Brett.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know. I kind of wanted to mask it, Sorry, Brett, but no, I'm not. I'm not sorry. But yeah, him and Brett and Kirk Cousins are just alike, man. I'm just saying.
They both like Eli Apple, apparently, too, because Brett both really like Eli Apple.
I see them. Brett. Anyway, I see them. Green Bay is still gonna be up there. You got Aaron Rodgers, so I mean, you're not gonna overtake him. The gap is closed, but they got Kirk Cousins. He's going to keep them from winning the division.
I don't trust him still. I still think that he has a great that Jefferson is so damn good. Thielen is still a damn good receiver, and he is kind of quietly his production is going to go down.
He had Thielen and Diggs.
Yeah, he sure did.
It couldn't do nothing, man.
He sure did. Keep riding along. Whoever wants to chime on this, I give you my 2 cents on this team.
I think that Justin Jefferson will have better numbers than Devontae this year.
I could see that.
Yeah, I just see him maybe catching 110 balls. I'm not sure how many he had last year, but it was probably 80, 90 or more. But Cousins will probably throw 40 touchdowns this year because I think Jefferson will probably catch 15 himself. They got pretty good running backs, Dalvin Cook. Although last year he didn't produce like to where he was drafted in fantasy.
108 receptions last year for 16. 108 receptions, hit pay dirt 10 times receiving wise, and 1,616 yards. He actually played all 17 games. Yeah, wow. That is a damn good stat line. And paled in comparison to the guy who most people think is number one in at least in the fantasy world, Cooper Kupp, who had over 140 catches. But, that's going to be hard to replicate.
Those are good numbers. I guess I don't know if this Irv Smith is a good receiving tight end, but he missed the whole season last year, and he will be back. So,
well, he's the beneficiary of having some damn good talent around him where he could eat, but that remains to be seen if he could even be on the field.
Know.
His father was a good tight end too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how Josh feels about this, but I'm pretty nervous about game 1 against the Vikings in Minnesota.
Tough place to play.
Yeah, it's not where you really want to start the season, but and then you got Za'Darius is going to be there, kind of.
A lot of emotions there.
Yeah. The Vikings, I think it was like 13 one-score games last year. So, there's a lot of room for them to pick up a couple more wins, I guess Za'Darius is probably the biggest difference maker that they've added.
I'd have to say so. I'd have to say so. On paper, they got a really good team. I don't think anybody questions the talent on that team, but they have not been able to put it all together and underachieve. Like I said, they had some feel-good wins last year, but then you lose to Zappy's team when they were most vulnerable, starting Cooper Rush, and the kid played great in that.
Yeah,
it's because our redheads can beat the Vikings. It was Andy Dalton the year before that.
Jason Garrett did it too back in the day.
Yeah, he did.
Look,
I care the Packers
Andy Dalton beat the Badgers in the Rose Bowl.
The redhead. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
So wait a minute. I'm starting to learn something here. So you're saying, in other words, the redheads
own the Vikings.
Own the Vikings.
Or maybe they're just like, hey, come get me. I want to be a Viking, like something. I don't know.
But Jason Garrett was on our roster when we throttled the Vikings in 2000.
The clapper? That jerk off?
All right. So I haven't given my 2 cents yet, but from what I'm gathering right now is everyone in here thinks the Vikings are going to finish in second place behind the Packers.
Yes, sir.
Second, and chance for a wild card spot.
So I'm going to be that guy.
Of course you are.
Of course you are.
I'm going to be that guy. And
let's go ahead and freeze, man.
No,
I might mute him if he doesn't freeze.
We're gonna freeze his ass up.
There's reasons why I think highly of the Vikings. For one, Idris mentioned it. How many close games did they lose last year? I blame that a lot on Mike Zimmer. I think it was time for change. Mike Zimmer was past his time. He went past his time after he lost to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game back in 2019.
Yeah, he could have hosted the bowl that year.
Yeah.
So I look at Minnesota and I think to myself, you guys are already talking about Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he's going to get his looks. He's a top 3 receiver. He might be statistically the best one this year because you're going to have Adam Thielen, but you have not mentioned KJ Osborne. That guy came on real strong last year. He played great. He played great football, and he's a great number 3. Also, someone that could possibly surpass and take over number 2 from Adam Thielen.
Yeah, because Thielen has got some miles on him.
Yeah, he does,
and some nagging injuries that kind of show their ugly face.
Yeah, and I think bringing in a Kevin O'Connell, he's someone that is going to be able to utilize these guys. And then not to mention Dalvin Cook. I'm expecting a big bounce back year from him, even though he still rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. Mm-hmm. I think him and Madison are going to do well. There's just something about Kirk Cousins that I feel like maybe this is going to be the year. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the start of their schedule, the Vikings, their first 5 games, 4 of them are at home.
Jesus.
And that is a lot. The only away game is they have to go to Philadelphia. But if you give the Vikings at home Green Bay, Detroit, New Orleans, and Chicago, and not to mention their defense, they needed to upgrade a lot of it. And they did. You mentioned they made 2 big free agent signings, but you guys are also forgetting the fact that they drafted Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth, 2 great secondary additions. Lewis Cine out of Georgia. He was considered one of the best safeties. And then they bring in Andrew Booth. Andrew Booth actually fits that system really well. So I think the Vikings are going to shock some people this year. I have them winning 11 games, and I have them winning the division.
I'm going to go 10-7. 4-2 in the division. They split with the Lions. They'll sweep the Bears, and I do have them splitting with the Pack, but I don't have them having a better record than the Pack. And I'm going to call this now. Green Bay wins in Minnesota. and Green Bay's lone regular season loss will be to the Vikings in Lambeau. They're going to do it different this year. They're going to win on each other's turf.
I'm saying 11-6 for them.
Oh, 2-11 wins. Okay.
I say 11-6 wild card.
Because the thing is, Zap, that I find intriguing, it's very rare that you get 4 of your first 5 at home. But I would have to imagine that at the back end of that, they're going to get a shit ton of road games.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did notice that. However, they have a very favorable schedule when you talk about that exact thing. Week 17, they do go to Green Bay. But
it's in Green Bay? Take that shit back. Back that shit up. No, sir.
No, you can't. You can't refrain from that.
In Green Bay, week 17?
No.
Yeah, week 18,
happening.
they go to
maybe
Chicago.
this does make sense. Green Bay has the division wrapped up, so Minnesota wins that game while the Packers are resting people. Maybe that's our answer.
Right.
Well, you'll get my answer why when we come back to the Packers.
That's
all
if
right.
you don't freeze up.
Yeah, you're doing good, Zab. You haven't froze up yet.
Mm-hmm.
Green Bay Packers. Been on the doorstep for quite a few years. Won the NFC North, lost in the divisional round to the San Francisco 49ers. Blocked punt, blocked field goal did them in, and an iced out field actually played into the favor of the more physical 49er team. Key additions, Sammy Watkins, a veteran, very injury prone, but when healthy, still has flashes of the star that he once was. What I really love is this rookie class. Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. A big chunk of this was in part the return they received for perennial Pro Bowler, perennial All-Pro Devontae Adams, who they did deal to the Las Vegas Raiders. I've said this so many times. Doubs reminds me of a very young Plaxico Burress. I admire his game. I think his ceiling could be something comparable to what Burress achieved. Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt playing on that level to hit the defense twice, especially when losing Za'Darius. I view the Packers as a team that has a top 5 corner, and now I think at each layer of the defense. Now, granted, these are year one guys, but I view SEC players in a different air when it comes to jumping right into the NFL, and I think they're more prepared, especially on that side of the ball. Christian Watson, I was intrigued with that one, but they obviously have an aging Randall Cobb. Mm-hmm. Tunyon missed a lot of time. Mercedes Lewis has been reliable. I think Tunyon's the better of the two when healthy. Lazard has played very well. They lose MVS to the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. But what I like about the build with this team, A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, the two-headed monster, that is vital in January/February. And I believe that this team is going to get a lot grittier and a lot tougher. Rodgers' numbers might take a hit to a level where they're going to be finishing a lot of drives running the ball as opposed to passing. But I do believe that Aaron Rodgers is good enough to get these kids at a high level and a high confidence when things really matter down the stretch. And while Devontae Adams is a phenomenal talent, I'll be the first to say that, I think Green Bay coming in a little bit of a dog, considering, they're probably third or even worse this year because, obviously everybody's on the Tampa or the LA bandwagon. The one time Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl, he had a top 10 defense. I do believe that this team could be a top 5 defense. And with the running game and with Rodgers having so many bitter experiences in these playoffs over the course of the last few years, I do think this could be a year that they really surprise people where they wouldn't necessarily be the sexy pick going in. And I want to make one last point. The year that the Packers won the ball with Rodgers, they did something that my New York Giants did. They ran the table on the road. Everybody was screaming that, they can't win on the road. I don't agree with that shit. We'll see. I think they're going to have a better year than people project. I don't think it's going to be a down year because you lose one player, because that player still has to get the ball thrown to him. I'm going to shut up now. You guys dive in.
Well, I could talk a little bit about the receiving. I think Josh probably wants to talk about our running game, but I get a lot of stuff on Facebook about the Packers. I assume you guys get it about your home teams, but Dobbs has been phenomenal so far in practice. One article said, did Green Bay get the steal of the draft?
I liked him at Nevada.
Yeah, Dobbs is making some great catches in practice. I think Lazard is going to rise, possibly to top receiver. And an interesting fact about losing Davante Adams, he's missed 11 games in his career with the Packers. The Packers are 10-1 wins to losses when he's not there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the one defeat was to KC when they also were missing Aaron Rodgers. I could be wrong.
No,
I don't recall Davante playing, but I could be wrong.
It was to the Detroit Lions.
Wow. Shit. Okay.
Rodgers got a concussion early in the game.
Yeah.
And went out, and we got beat in that one. So they're 10-1, 7-0 since 2019 without Adams. So Rodgers just looks around more. He finds the open man. Where I've some of his games he's been too locked in on Davante.
One staggering stat on Aaron Rodgers is that the only first-round pick that he's ever thrown a touchdown pass to is Mercedes Lewis. I think that is, and I'm not saying you can't get value at receiver in round 2, 3, 4, even 5, 6. I mean, there's if you're doing your homework, you could always find value. But I do find it staggering. It's pretty wild when you think about it.
Well,
know,
their
really
picks, they expect Rodgers to make a second or third round wide receiver into a star, and he's done it many, many times.
Oh yeah,
indeed, I agree.
So, do you guys mind if I go second?
No, go ahead.
Well, it's too late. You're already talking.
So then I'm going to continue. No, so all right. So for me,
love fucking with this guy.
I love it. I'll take it, and then I'll come right back. No, I do like. I like the Packers for many reasons that you just said. My only thing is, you guys said two things that kind of. One of them contradicts itself.
Okay.
And then the other one, I don't want to say it contradicts itself too, but it's just, let me just say it. All right, so Davante Adams, he's gone. It was one thing when defenses out of nowhere had to make a quick game plan because Davante wasn't there, so they had to figure something out within a week or two to plan for Alan Lazard or Martavius Scaldine or whoever the case may be. In this case, you have, where's Sammy Watkins, first of all? We haven't seen anything about him. Their starters right now he's been dinged up. So you're asking Alan Lazard, who, although there's been a lot of hype about the guy, we still haven't seen it. Then you have Christian Watson, who's been hurt. I like Romeo Doubs. But when it comes time for rookie receivers, especially that were drafted later, to match up against the first team defenses, they freeze for some reason. I expect their offense to be very similar to last year, except I think they're going to run into a lot of troubles with the receiving core. And because of that, it's going to allow defenses to now game plan even more against Jones and A.J. Dillon. So if you have so many players, you put your fastest linebacker on as a spy on Jones, you can take him out of the game right away. Their defense is going to be great. They're going to have a great defense, but I think they're going to lose a lot of close games because of that. But then the other thing is, I look at their schedule. They start off in Minnesota, like we already know. Week 2, they have New Orleans coming in, and then week 3, they got to go to Kansas City. That's a tough 3-game start. And then I'm sorry. They go to Minnesota week 1. Then week 2 they have Chicago. Week 3 they go to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, we're going to be at that game more than likely.
And then they have a nice 3-game stretch where they have the Patriots, the Jets, and the Giants. So 2 of those are guaranteed wins. Sorry.
Which ones?
So they're beating the Jets.
They beat the Jets.
They're beating the Jets and the Patriots. We're undefeated in Europe.
Hey,
and we play
great,
well in Green Bay.
You know, in
that's the thing. We're in Europe.
Against Green Bay, we play well.
We have never lost in Europe.
Never lost in Europe.
Wins over the Rams and the Dolphins.
Then maybe you should get someone from Saudi Arabia or something like that to start a NFL Europe backup.
We might.
But no, so I look at – but then they have a tough stretch where they got to go to Washington, Buffalo, and Detroit. And Detroit plays them tough, and Detroit's going to be a much better team this year.
Yeah.
There's just so many question marks right now, and I think a lot of it comes down to their receiving core. I'm expecting big things from their defense. Don't get me wrong. I think drafting Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker, I think that was great. I think that
go to the best college and get 2 of their best players on defense.
Yeah, exactly. And then Christian Watson, I mean, hey, let's go. But then Sean Ryan was another great one. I was a big fan of Sean Ryan come out. I have the Packers winning 11 games as well and losing 6. But I have the Vikings owning the tiebreaker this year.
You got them going for a sweep?
No.
Or having a better divisional record?
Having a better divisional record.
I'm going 12-5, possibly 13-4, but I'm going to stick on 12-5 because I do believe, to your point, that the first 6 weeks, and it's not necessarily because of who they're playing. You made a good point about who they are playing, but I think bigger than that is that it is going to take a little time for all of these kids to get ready for everything at NFL speed. But when you have a really good defense, and in my opinion, what will be a top 5 defense, I think it can compensate for some of those learning curves. And I do believe that for many years, and I think John would probably agree with me on this, I do believe to a level that they had to ride Aaron Rodgers a little too hard. This particular season and seasons coming behind this season, because it's not a make or break that they must win this year. But I do believe that the future is going to be more geared to taking a little bit off of his shoulders, not because he can't handle it, but because they need to have a more diversified team. And I think, defense wins championships, man, no matter what level of football we're playing. And I go back to my original point about the Packers in 2010, having that excellent defense, Julius Peppers, Clay Matthews, Charles Woodson, to name a few.
Rashawn Gary's going to blow up this year.
And that's another player that nobody mentioned yet. Yes, but I like what they got going on that defense. I really do. And even if they catch a few injuries, I like their depth. And I love their running game. I think A.J. Dillon is possibly the best change of pace back in the league. And I would say Tony Pollard could get a few votes too. But, I like that. It's all about cultivating the young guys and seeing what you could get out of older guys like Cobb and Watkins. But I think it's a decent mix when you have 2 veterans that are going to be helping a lot of these young kids. Because one thing about Cobb and Watkins, they've been around for a long time, and they can help some of these kids adjust to life in the NFL.
Yeah, I say 12-5 also. When Sammy Watkins is healthy, the guy is a freaking beast.
Oh, he does it.
The problem is the guy can't stay healthy.
That's why Buffalo gave up on him.
Right, in Kansas City.
That's why everyone's giving up on him.
Yeah, and he's going to Green Bay. It's cold up there. And when you suffer from injuries, man, you don't want to be in cold weather.
I did kind of find, the desire to go to Green Bay a little funny, given your point, because, the older you get, the more injuries you get. That climate is no game. Mm-hmm. I wasn't too – I'll be honest, I wasn't too endeared with the Sammy Watkins pickup. But I don't think Green Bay was too endeared either. That's why they went out and got some talented young kids.
I think they run the ball a lot, though.
Oh, no question. And Aaron Jones is another guy.
Yeah, him and Dylan's going to – yeah.
That is going to be excellent in the receiving game in addition to what they're offering. And, if Tunyon gets healthy, Mercedes Lewis is a grizzled veteran that can come in and get the job done. Josh, what do you think about all this? How do you think this plays out for your team?
I think AJ Dillon is going to be the most important player on the offense this year. He's just. I mean, Aaron Jones. Dillon is at the place now where Jones can kind of play his game. That's he's a little smaller. He's a little more inclined for some targets, and I think they'll have both of them on the field a lot this year at the same time. And defenses won't know what to do with that. And the receivers work in progress. These receivers,
no question.
As you pointed out, though, they got the veterans, Watkins, Cobb. They have the opportunity for mentorship there. But I think we can lean on this running game pretty hard. And
I tend to agree. I do see it that way very much. So I know back in what year was it 2019 when you guys got rocked by the 49ers? It was a similar formula that got you there. But I do believe that this particular Packer team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is a hell of a lot more talented. And I think after the way that they got pushed around in that 49er game to a level, I disagree with one thing, though. While I like your point about Dillon, I think the most important player on the offense is actually David Bakhtiari, because his absence has fucked Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years at the most untimely times to miss games. Not the guy's fault. He was legitimately hurt, but it definitely affected that Tampa game with the limited Lambeau crowd. JPP was having a party back there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All three fingers, too.
Man. He didn't need them all.
He needed them all.
So you mentioned something that I wanted to talk about was the fact about Bakhtiari missing time. And so for the last 2 years, he hasn't been a guarantee to play 16 games and then 17 games.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a major reason why for the record. But the other thing, and I want you guys to listen closely to this, last year, the Packers against rookie quarterbacks, injured quarterbacks, or backup quarterbacks, they were 8-0. That's good.
That's good.
But against everyone else, they were 5-5. That to me plays a lot into this as well, is that they're about to face a lot of adversity they may not have felt in a while. And David LaFleur, he's had a good go. He's had a pretty easy ride with the Packers since he became head coach, at least in the regular season. Playoffs, it's a whole different story, which will lead to me why you guys will love what I'm saying later. I do believe that the Packers have too many question marks. And that was the other two things I wanted to talk about was you had mentioned Bakhtiari, but he hasn't shown that he can stay healthy.
I think Rodgers is going to have to show up in the playoffs, man.
No doubt.
He's got to show up he's got to play like he plays during the season, because these past couple of years, man, it's like
he's better than that.
Yeah, where you been? You're supposed to be putting your foot on their throats and say, look, I'm going to finish this game. We're going to make sure y'all go home and don't come back until next year. And I think that's the key. He's got to be that
and
killer.
They had home field the last 2 years. That's something that many said that's why what wasn't on the Packers side. I don't consider the 2020 home field the same thing because of the limited crowd. I think that was an unfortunate situation because that crowd is a different kind of crowd.
Right.
But, you fast forward to 2021, they should have won the game. Their defense played fucking outstanding that night. But I got to give the 49ers their due for the sheer fact that they were able to out-physical the team and use their elements to a level against them. And I do think the Packers took that to heart. And that's why they decided to really go hard on the defensive side of the ball to gain some of that physicality that's kind of indicative of not just these, I'm talking about the old school Packer football, like the old days, the vintage shit that got their great coach, encrypted on the trophy, that was their bread and butter. You go back to the old days.
Right.
So to piggyback off what you guys are saying right now is you guys have all said the same thing. Aaron Rodgers is great on the road.
Yep.
But at home, they lost to the 49ers at home. I have the Packers making the NFC Championship game. I just don't have them winning the division. And because I think if you think back to their history, when was the last time they went to the Super Bowl?
That's what I was going to say.
They didn't win the division that year.
They didn't win the division, and what else?
The great Jay Cutler was injured, so I think they finished it against Caleb Haney.
They had to play every game on the road.
Yeah.
They beat the Eagles, and they doubled up the Falcons. Matty Ice was at 42-21 in the divisional. I mean,
yeah, they had to
look.
When
they almost pulled that shit off in 16 as well when they were all decimated and lost to the Falcons.
But you know the thing about it, look at Aaron Rodgers' history.
They were home.
Other than the Super Bowl year,
that was the boat trip game
when he had home, like the Giants beat him twice.
Yeah, with one with Favre, one with Rodgers.
15-1, the Giants took him down. When it was cold, what that 1 year, Giants took him
and
down.
That Packer team was better than the team that won the bowl. They were better than that team.
They were crazy good.
Were it not for a late Chiefs field goal, that team's undefeated.
Yes.
So
it's him.
We lost
where are you?
We lost our Lambeau Field mystique way back in the 2005-6, whatever it was.
I think Michael Vick did it.
You know what I mean? They got to Favre first. I think Michael Vick and the Falcons beat Favre, but at that time we were something like 13-0 in
yes.
Once they broke Favre, that was it. That was it.
But that magic is not there anymore.
Because you could not beat Green
and
Bay.
You
couldn't beat them.
And Green Bay is just one of those places that, as of late, that at home in the playoffs, I don't know what it is. I could say the same thing about my Cowboys ever since we introduced AT&T Stadium, Texas Stadium,
and I can say the same about MetLife.
But the Cowboys, it's all corporate Cowboys, corporate America, all about the money.
A lot of Yankee fans share that sentiment with Yankee Stadium 3 versus Yankee Stadium 2.
Mm-hmm. And that's what the Packers are turning into as well. And I don't want to say it's the future, but I mean, God, we have. I don't want to get off track. I'm sorry. I'm getting heated up today right now, thinking about Jerry Jones and the Cowboys and all that. But it almost seems the same way with the Packers. That if you look at the teams that have won, it's teams that, well, for one, they're spending the money in free agency. The Packers finally started picking that up a couple years ago. It hasn't paid off, but I still don't think home field advantage is for them because I think Aaron Rodgers on the road is just a phenomenal quarterback. I think he's one of the better ones. I
think sometimes that time of the year, we talk about the elements and how last year the Niners used it against them. So to a level, I can understand where you're going with that. Like if you put Aaron Rodgers in an indoor stadium, he's gonna light you the fuck up. He's gonna
light you up.
Well, that's why he owns AT&T Stadium.
Yeah, he'll light you. He'll kill you.
And Favre could never win in Texas Stadium. That was one thing he should never do. If I'm not mistaken, I think he did it with Minnesota, but he never did it as a Packer.
Yeah, he couldn't do it as a Packer.
that Minnesota game. That was a special team. Like no one was beating them there.
I mean, the whole line was sensational.
Mm-hmm.
You've got.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Until they broke the curse in Lambeau, you couldn't beat Favre in Lambeau.
or any Packer team for that matter when it mattered. When it counted, not when it counted.
You got destroyed too. It wasn't like it was easy. It was like, it wasn't like it was hard. They put it in your ass. Like
Mike Vick in that particular game that kind of broke that Lambeau streak.
Yeah.
Once again, using the elements against the defense. Mike Vick was such a freak athlete, and he had guys that just could not stay upright. They were busting their asses just trying to keep him in front of them. And Minnesota, a couple of years after that, that was a disappointing one for Packer fans.
Yeah,
because the Vikings weren't that good that year. They were like 8-8. But those are the breaks and those are the playoffs. It's all about when you play each other. But I do want to say one thing to Zap, and last thing I'm going to say on my end about any of this. You made a solid point about 5-5 versus everybody else, and unhealthy start QB1s. But you have to ask yourself, would they have beaten those team starters? Looking at last year's schedule, I'm going to say possibly. Because, they beat Lamar's team without Lamar. Quite frankly, at that juncture of the year, his backup was playing better. Yeah. They played the Chiefs without Rodgers. That should have been a win. So it's kind of a few ways to look at it. But as you can see, I'm kind of being very supportive of this Packer team. And, it's on me. My father, as everybody that watches my show knows, diehard Green Bay Packer fan. So I always tell people that if it doesn't affect the G-men, is usually the only time that I'm okay with rooting against the Packers. If it doesn't affect my team, I think when I've deliberately rooted against them, you got to go way back to the fateful Sterling Sharp game when his career was ended in Tampa. Mm-hmm. Packers won the game, but they lost one of the finest receivers ever. I was rooting against them that day. We needed that win with the great Dave Brown against your team. Dave Brown, victory over Troy Aikman, 1994. Not a season or a game that many people remember. It was shitty Jersey weather.
Greatest game David Brown ever played in his life.
I would have to say that Dave Brown showed out that day, but God, he is so fucking awful.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Every dog has that one punch,
Yeah, indeed.
He's a nightmare, man.
That's all I got on the. I got the Packers finishing the season as a 3 seed. I have them appearing in the NFC title game. I'm not going to give my prediction on who they're going to play or if they're going to win, because that's what at the end, right before the season starts, that's our real rollout. These are each individual divisional previews. But I do have the Packers being one of the 2 teams in the NFC title game. And no, they will not be. The game will not be in Lambeau.
Yeah,
it might be better for them.
I hope.
I'm not against that at all.
It's going to be probably in Jersey, right? Jersey?
Yeah.
If they're a wild card, then that could go into Zappy's little break. Like maybe we go 9-8 and get hot.
That's why I have them as a 6
Win the
seed.
division at 9-8 after AJ Brown causes a scene with Jalen Hurts. After Dak decides to give himself up again with no timeouts. I mean, anything's possible.
Hey, that's our wonderful coaching.
Is Carson Wentz going to play 17 games this year? I certainly don't think so.
I give him 8. 9, maybe.
But who's at what yard line will Daniel Jones trip over his own foot again?
That was the turf's fault.
That was Jimmy Hoffa.
That was yeah,
there you go.
That was the turf. That was Hoffa, man.
That was awful. Everybody thought it was the old Giant Stadium where he was. I think it might be.
That was Hoffa.
Yeah, they moved him into Lincoln Financial.
Right.
Yeah. Every 25 or so years, you got to move them.
Yeah, you got to move them.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Uncle Junior explained that when he was trying to find the whereabouts of Pussy Malanga. I think we're all good here. Anybody that wants to hang out, we are going to cover in just a little bit the AFC West. But last thought here.
Oh.
All-time division greats.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many, and you could pick so many. I was just kind of on the theme of offensive players here.
Mm-hmm.
The great Brett Favre, Adrian Peterson, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders. I think on most people's list, Walter Payton and Barry Sanders are within the top 3 because you always got to consider Jim Brown as well. Adrian Peterson, sometimes I think his peak gets overlooked of how great he truly was.
Mm-hmm.
Brett Favre's a great story, starting in Atlanta, a backup, buried on the depth chart. Mr. Olson, I believe you were at the game where Brett Favre first showed his face.
Well, Josh and I both.
Oh, man.
Against the Bengals, 92, 90. Was it 92 or 93, Josh?
92, I think.
I think it was 92. We lost the Magic Man, Don
Mikowski.
Coming off a Pro Bowl, mind you.
Mikowski.
Favre comes in. We're losing 17-7 or something like that. He led us back in the second half.
Well, it was pretty bad. He threw a couple bad picks there, and the crowd chanted for Detmer. They actually chanted Detmer for Ty Detmer.
Ty Detmer, man. Hey, Ty Detmer was great at BYU.
Yeah. His brother was great, too. They got
pretty 7 years old when he came into the league, done a few missions, but yeah,
so basically
that was funny.
You guys got to see the first time in that uniform that Brett Favre led a team to victory. the game actually doesn't go on his record. That's the weird thing about NFL. The guy who started the game gets credited for the win.
Oh, that's the win for
Yeah.
John, huh?
Hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty much the birth of Brett Favre. And, I mean, that's where I really got into the Packers after seeing that, you know. And
that's pretty remarkable that you guys were there.
Yeah.
No one will ever break Brett's record of 315 starts.
No.
Well, somebody could have, but this douchebag named Ben McAdoo made sure that didn't happen.
Yeah. He'd have got that record by and blew it out.
Oh man, that one. Oh man, that one hurt.
That one hurt.
That one hurt.
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and go ahead. What you gonna say?
No, that's it. I don't. Oh, that's it.
Well, I want this camera to look at me just like Stephen A. Smith.
All right,
here we go. Check this out. I'm addressing the Warren Moon, Kyler Murray thing. Now, I love Warren Moon. Great guy, great player, had a hell of an arm. Does a lot for the black community. But Mr. Moon, you're wrong on this one. Reason being, this had nothing to do with color. None at all. If they told this man that he need to study in the film room, there's something to that. They did that to Jamarcus Russell? Jamarcus.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they gave him that blank VCR tape and told him to look at it, and he said, okay, and it was blank. They didn't just say this to Kyler Murray to say, hey, we want you to look at film. Because if you look at his play on the field, the second part of the season, he just looked like, I'm lost. Even during the season, he looked like, I'm lost.
And when you're commanding that kind of salary to not prepare is fucking crazy.
Right. This had nothing to do with him being black or whatever. This was an organization saying, get your head in the game. Period. And anyone thinks anything different, never mind. I ain't gonna say it.
And just to let you know, we are airing right now in the morning of August 1st, actually working together on this.
Damn.
So
we're time traveling.
Yeah, we're time traveling. This will be released in the near future. I just want to give you a quick, for instance, we did do an NFC North show, and I will say that the panel's predictions for the Cleveland Browns hinge very much so on the immediate future of the Deshaun Watson situation, which we're going to keep a close tab on. Zappy and I spoke on that on my ride home about how we navigate around that, and quite frankly, we just drop more videos because everything changes. And
that's how we do.
What have you done for me, League? John and Josh, thank you so very much for joining us. I know you guys, well, John, you're on vacation, so I appreciate you making some time for us here. Yep. Josh, I can't see you, but I miss you, buddy. And next time you're in Florida, we definitely have to hang out. Zappy didn't freeze. Yeah. Zappy didn't freeze. That's a miracle in itself.
Once I came inside.
And Idris, I appreciate that little tit at the end, because I do feel that I actually share his sentiment, to be honest. Your sentiment, I should say.
Yeah.
And football's almost here, guys. We all can't wait. We're actually going to run another video in a few minutes. Anybody on this video that wants to rejoin the next one is more than welcome. But for the meantime, we're going to be getting out of here now. Until next time, I am Richie. He is John. He is the voice, Josh Olson. He is Michael Zappy. He is Mr. Idris Salaam. We are out.
Peace.